A new professional social network. Welcome back to another Techstination interview. I'm Fred Fishkin, and with me is Peter Johnston, the CEO of Polywork. Thanks for joining us, Peter.
Yeah, no, thank you, Fred, so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So tell us what Polywork is all about.
So polywork, I guess the word polywork coming from the Greek, meaning, many, and then the many types of work. It's really based on the idea that people have been kind of confined to their singular job titles for the best part of, I guess all existence online as professionals and people. And polywork is based on the idea that we should be able to express lots of the different types of work that we do, both within our 9 to 5 and outside of our 9 to 5. Whether that's, a product designer who works at Dropbox and does everything from, consumer research to storyboarding to visual design during their 9 to 5 to maybe, having a podcast outside of their 9 to 5 or volunteering, mentoring, guest lecturing. It's just this idea that the world of work is not as linear and single tracked as like it once could be. And so we set out to really try to help people express the more multifaceted side of themselves, whether it was professional or personal. The app's kind of taken on a bit of a life of its own in the last month, but the vision really was to help people express themselves and the more unique parts of what they do beyond their job title.
So how did it come about? What's the story behind it?
Yeah, the story behind it's a long one, but I'll not tell the long or Irish version of the story. But it's really my previous company, Kalo, we helped large organizations manage talent networks. And so really, an EHR system exists for to kind of manage the tax information, the address, but it doesn't really tell you a lot about the people you work with, like what projects did they work on, or were they any good at those projects. And so my first attempt at sort of I've been really obsessed with this idea of helping people better represent who they are. And it was really born out of this pain point that I experienced when I worked at Google back in the UK many years ago. And it's based on the idea that I wanted to, my first way of trying to solve that problem was giving these large organizations a way to organize that information beyond the simple information you would store in like an EHR system. And so we did that for many years. Unfortunately, fast forward, with great clients, customers, Google, Airbnb would all manage their talent networks, the people, they would tag them, share them amongst colleagues. The long story really short is that when coronavirus hit, our revenue came from talent payments, and unemployment was not kind to the previous business. And so at the time, after 6 years in that business, we, just kind of spoke to our board, spoke to our investors, and, we'd had a lot of experience in this future of work talent network space, and we had some money left, and I still wanted to be an entrepreneur, still do, maybe a little crazy, but we just started looking in and diving in deeper to our data and speaking to people that have been using our previous products for many, many years, and the relationships we built. And we got really the insight that we then coined the term polywork, which was, these freelancers that were in our systems and consultants were really our first experience of people whose identities were fractional. They didn't really adhere to this job title system. They did different things for different businesses all at the same time. And so then when we started digging even deeper, we learned that actually it was the employees at Airbnb or Google or Pinterest that loved that way of representing themselves too, because they all had a story to tell beyond their job title. And they were starting to use our profile to post their podcasts, or the fact that they had started a side hustle with a friend. And so around that time, I guess someone said to me yesterday, was Polywork born out of the ashes of your previous business? And I was like, it's a little grim, but possibly. I think it sort of was. I think we really got the insight from that business that really people do polywork. And if that insight was correct, then the world isn't built for people who polywork. It's all of these professional networks that exist are either like LinkedIn and they're focused on your job title, or they focus on one part of your identity. So whether it's Behance is for just your design work, your visual design work, or Flickr is for just your photography, we sort of posed this question, well, where do you go if you're multifaceted? Like, are you going to really post the fact that you're mentoring and podcasting on a visual network? Probably not. And so we kind of thought, well, that's a big enough gap for us to maybe like have a second go at it, or redemption, given the first time didn't work out.
Well, we know how people use things like LinkedIn, which you mentioned. How do you envision people using it, or is it something that's to be used the way LinkedIn is used with Polywork?
Yeah, great question. I think you know, I think personally of my own use cases of LinkedIn, and I do think it served a phenomenal purpose in the world to an extent. I think, when people are trying to change full-time job, they go in, they update their profile, and they probably engage a recruiter or two, or try to search for full-time jobs. But apart from that, and maybe reading the news feed, there's not a lot of direct collaboration with people. It's kind of hard to know really like who your network is there. Like we just met, for example, and I could probably connect with you and probably endorse you for, baking cupcakes. I don't know if you're a good chef. I'm sure you are. And so just that information and some of the issues with that information make it really hard to genuinely know who you can connect with, or who you're one degree of separation away with exactly. So I think LinkedIn serves as a good database of people to look up the basic information on them. But it's really hard to express yourself beyond the title and really connect with people. And the way people have been using Polywork really has two different main functions. The first one is, rather than that focus on the schools you went to and the job titles you've held, which we think are just really false signals of potential, like they're false proxies of potential. I definitely don't know the school I went to in Belfast, and I think I'm doing okay and would like to do more stuff. And so we really set those aside, and we focused on letting people share a timeline of the different things they've actually done. So that's the first thing I think people have resonated with in our first month in the wild. So rather than me saying, for example, I'm a product designer at Dropbox, I would say, well, here's actually the things that I did at Dropbox. And we give people a way to share a more intimate view into what they thought about how they approached this problem, or how they designed that iOS app, or, how they launched that marketing campaign. And so that's the first piece. I think people are sharing more fractional updates on what they've actually done before. And one of the key things I think to that is, I'm not sure if you've seen any of the comments on Twitter, but there was a couple of campaigns started by some early adopters 2 weeks ago and last week as well, where we let you create badges to represent the different aspects of who you are and your life. And I think that maybe it's a combination of our branding. Like our branding is these 3D characters, and it's very playful and colorful. But people created the imposter syndrome badge, like as one great example. Someone created the failure badge, and I think one of the reasons they're being more honest and intimate about expressing themselves is, I think we're not corporate. We're not like dark blue and white and, very like stuffy and corporate. And the other is, we actually just made a conscious decision to not introduce what we call systems of stress into the product. So there aren't any likes or reactions on the platform. Like it's not Polywork is not a popularity contest. And the reason we did that is, well, one, the world's anxious enough as it is, and we wanted to kind of try to create a slightly healthier space, so that when the next time someone wants to come express what's important to them, now that we've built a way that they can do that, like beyond their job title, they wouldn't feel judged if they wanted to post like what was important to them, because it's all relative, right? Like, some big projects to some people might not be important to others, but smaller little things, or works in progress, or failures, or talking about imposter syndrome in the tech industry are important to some people. And we just had this insight from our previous business that the second you introduce those like buttons and those counts, people are less willing to express themselves. And so I have seen people use it in the last month just to really tell these like uniquely human stories, which I'm super excited about. Like we have like the dog parent badge is one of the most popular ones, coffee lover, imposter syndrome, failure, amazing guy, Rich, I got to meet a couple of weeks ago. An engineer said, he created the ADHD badge. He said, this is like actually going to help people and like our self-esteem, because we are going to be able to track more like what we're actually doing in a timeline, rather than having it like, oh, I'm rich and I'm just this engineer that you know nothing else about online. And so I think that'll be like the core use case, is just really like a slightly safer, judgment-free environment to like express the different things that are important to you, whether they're professional or not. I think that's the biggest thing that took us by surprise in the last month, has been, as of last Sunday, 53% of posts are what we would categorize traditionally as social. And I even caught myself posting like that I was dog dadding at the weekend. I posted a picture of like walking Lenny in the Lower East Side, or seeing, the head of typography at Adobe. Love his profile, Tim Brown. He was posting that he just started homeschooling his daughters. And then like one update later, it's like, oh, I launched Adobe Illustrator on iPad. I was like, it was kind of weird to see those like that incredible like, differentiated content, which I don't think you can see online anywhere at the moment.
Now, is it designed for professional contacts that you meet maybe in the hire people, or is it just more of a real social kind of atmosphere?
Yeah, so in terms of connecting with people and hiring, I mean, so there's definitely benefits of just for people that want to hire, whether it's for full-time or just like a side project. I think just being able to see, I mean, that's really part of the bigger vision, which we can get into later, but is that if you can see different things that people have done, more instantly that they could be a match to team up with you. You don't have to, decipher the job title. Well, what did Fred actually do in this job? Or what did Peter actually do? Or how did he think at his time, when he was a designer? But I think on particularly on collaborating and connecting, that's really like the second part of the product. And we made a conscious decision. I'm sure you've used the connection button on LinkedIn. You send connections. I have a lot of connections, 6,000. I might know 6 of those people. And I'm not really sure of the purpose it serves yet, other than like a number counter again, which we didn't put any number counters on our platform. And what we did was though, so let's say you set up a profile on Polywork. You can say, I'm Fred. Here's my badges. Here's the different parts of my life. I'm a founder, podcaster, radio speaker for 20 years, 30 years, 30.
A lot.
a lot. Yeah. Sorry, I couldn't remember if you said 20 or 30 years. A lot of time. And then you can share the things you've done during that time. But the next part is really just telling the app, okay, I'm Fred, and here's the things I would like to be contacted for. And this is the collaboration part. This is the finding people part. So you could say, I'm open to having people guest speak on my podcast. I'm up for guest lecturing at Princeton. I'm up for angel investing, mentoring, like whatever it might be, kind of all of these little fractional types of work that LinkedIn kind of forgot about, that people really do every day. And then it's kind of like a traffic light system. You can say, you can contact me for these things now. And so it's kind of like you come in, you set up your page, you share what you're up to, see what everyone else is doing, but then it's just a much cleaner, high signal environment where people can actually like, oh, I didn't, like, it's kind of crazy. I mean, he obviously invested in us, but the founder of Visco, the popular kind of image app and creative community, he's open right now on our app to being contacted to like test new products, which is kind of cool. Like before, I think for someone trying to like find someone to test their product, it would have been a bunch of random messages sent out on LinkedIn or Twitter, or maybe DMing people. And it just would have been this really hard, difficult, long process, because you don't actually, there's no way to signal to people, I want you to contact me for this stuff. And LinkedIn and other networks kind of created this culture of, I'm going to connect with you and spam you anyway, just in case you might want to buy software from me, or just in case, the usual messages we kind of get on those platforms. We kind of wanted a way to just allow people to connect with people if they want to be contacted. So you can literally in Polywork like turn off the contact button if you get too many requests, or you just decide, hey, I'm busy, I'm doing Polywork, I have enough stuff to do, I don't want to do anything right now. So we're excited. I mean, mostly people are using the app right now for building their pages out and their websites and expressing who they are, following others. But we're starting to see an uptick. I think there's something like 100 collaboration requests are sent per day at the moment, which is quite low. But I think as we open it up more and people get more established on the app, I think they'll start to see the benefit of kind of having like slightly more control over who contacts you in the world.
Well, you've got some pretty big name backers getting involved with the company here. Tell us what the business model is.
Yeah, we are very lucky to have a lot of the original social network founders as investors. It was kind of a design. I have not done a consumer company before, and my last one was B2B, and so I get to learn from them, and kind of like borrow some cheat codes if there's any like big mistakes that they made or things they'd like to do differently when they're building, if they were to build a social network again. In terms of the business model, so I guess there's two really quick things. The first is we're never going to monetize anything that introduces friction to, like, the whole idea of the platform is that by telling your story in a more open way, you can connect to more opportunity. For example, just knowing and seeing what you've done before would allow me to be like, oh my goodness, Fred could be a great fit for like this project we're thinking about, full time or other. And so there's a lot of networks that by design, they monetize friction, which is they introduce middle persons like recruiters on the platform that have to facilitate the connection between one human to another. Or you have marketplaces that introduce like a 15% fee on connecting people to do work together, and we will never do that. I know that sounds a little like light and aspirational right now. I think we're going to try to do things a little differently, like we are with the lack of like buttons on the platform. And so I say that all to say, we are going to monetize. The product will be free forever for everyone, but there are two premium versions of the product coming up. One is, at the moment, everyone has like a pretty default timeline, and their websites look kind of similar. They got a background image, they got a header, and they've got this timeline. We're going to let people purchase templates to really customize that. I mean, that's one thing that we had to balance, is a uniformity in terms of helping people understand the path other professionals have taken, but also at the same time allowing them a way to express their uniqueness. Like they want to change the colors, the font type, the layout. So, we have a timeline today. We'll have a Pinterest style grid view in a couple of weeks time. And so the first premium version will be templates. And then ultimately what we're really building is a search engine. It's a time machine, a way to find people really, really quickly. And I think around that, there will be ways, whether it's down the line, if people, a mom and pop shop wants to advertise their services, or a person is really trying to get out on the speaker circuit within like the construction industry, and they want to make sure they're seen. I think we will work on ways to help make sure that people can promote themselves within the network as best as possible. But yeah, early days on that. I think right now is like mainly just let's get some users in and make sure that the amount of bugs they're reporting is kind of like comes down over the next month. But we definitely, obviously, when we met those investors, had to talk a lot about how will you monetize. And so those are two of the things we talked them through.
So a network like this really only works when you have masses of people. I don't know what the magic numbers are. Right now, there seems to be a gate there. You have a waiting list for people to join. So tell us how this opens up and what people should know who might be watching or listening to this and are interested.
Yeah, people don't like the wait list. That is for sure. I mean, it's funny. Wait lists get a really bad rep because I think they come across as it's an app trying to create exclusivity or demand, or sort of like the nightclub thing. Like I mean, I haven't been to a nightclub in 10 years, but you know what I mean. Like there's a lot of people trying to get in here. We should get into. I mean, the reality is, until last week, we were 9 people, and so we had 55 users helping us test over the last 6 months, and then we launched, and now we're at 2,500 users. And that might not seem like a lot of users, but for a 9-person team that's trying to deal with support tickets, and 30% of the domains that people are trying to connect to their profiles aren't connecting, it was really just designed to make sure we don't fall over. Like we probably get about 100 tickets a day submitted by users right now asking, because it's just a very early app. I mean, it's only 1 year old. And so that, I think we were very fortunate. We had 2 more people join this week, which is exciting. And so the more we kind of hire customer support people, we hired another product manager. We were gradually letting, I think it's something along the lines of like letting like 600 people in every couple of weeks. It's like 300 per week. Like on a Monday, we kind of just like invite them into the platform, and I would imagine that will continue for at least another 2 months, and then we'll start to open it up more and more and more. It's really just so we can iron out the bugs so that people don't have a terrible experience, and just balancing like that. We'd love to get everyone in tomorrow with we don't want it to fall over. And I'd like my team, to finish somewhere close to 6 p.m. Without having to like run into the evenings, and just to like make sure everyone's getting on the app.
Is this for everyone? Is Polywork designed for like a Facebook that everybody's going to want to be in on this?
I'd love it to be one day. Yeah. I mean, I think the idea of polywork, the verb, the trend, like to do polywork, I think is pretty universal. Like you talking before the interview about, podcasting and speaker series, and, or someone, like Kevin Durant, Nets player, NBA player, but also like an investor and philanthropist. And I think the idea of people being able to have like a second, third, fourth life as a professional in person, I think is appealing. I think is sort of universal, like whether they're famous or not. And that being said, we started very heavily in tech just because that was our network. I mean, like the first set of people that got the app were our friends, and I've worked in most of my friend group is either in the tech space or in music. Actually, my best friend lives in Atlanta, and so early on we ended up in music pretty early, just because he sent the invites to some friends, they sent the invites to some friends, and we ended up in tech too. But the platform's definitely being built in a way that, whether someone comes in from the architecture industry, oiling industry, someone that owns a yogurt shop, I mean, you can create their own badges that represent who you are. We tried to make it as flexible as possible for that. Like there's no industries, you don't have to like, when you sign up on traditional professional networks, you have to be like, well, what industry I'm in? It's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know who created those industries, but just create the badges that represent you. And then, it's kind of cool to see actually some investors obviously ended up on the product because we raised some investment, and, actually seeing some people that are in Atlanta in the music industry using it and creating like the artist manager badge or the A&R badge. And then they also have like the sneakerhead badge, and then seeing the sneakerhead badge then adopted by like venture capitalists in Silicon Valley. I thought there was this like nice kind of just like immediate horizontal kind of like commonality in worlds that may not traditionally have clashed as much or as melded as much. So yeah, we're going to roll it out vertical by vertical, and I hope it's for everyone. I know polywork, the trend is definitely big in people that work in tech and media as well. Like hosting podcasts and speaking, interviewing, appearing on TV. It's gonna be cool to see like the different polywork stories come out. I think like everyone kind of has that like side project they're working on that they want to tell that story. So hopefully,
and many interests beyond what they're doing to try to earn a living.
Yeah, I'll get 100%. Yeah, I'm wanting to do more. Right. I think like that's the big reason why we've become popular in the last month, is that everyone just sat at home for a year, kind of wondering like, what am I going to do when I get out of this? Like we had a lot more time to think about who we are, what we want to do, and whether that will be different to what we're doing right now today or during coronavirus. And so I think that's what you're seeing too, is like people excited about the possibility of, wait a second, what if I could just guest lecture on a Friday somewhere on like a topic? Or what if I could, I like, for as busy as we were with the company, one of my favorite things during the pandemic was I just needed variety. So I started, actually a previous colleague of mine, an engineer from Poland, Tomek, that worked at my company for 4 years, reached back out because he started his own business. I love seeing that. And I meet with him now every other Monday just to like, and it helps him, he loves it, but it's also really selfish. It helps me too. It's like variety. I get to like give him some of my cheat codes and be like, nope, I messed that up completely. Like you can do it, like avoid that pitfall, don't do this. And so, yeah, hopefully he will. Yeah. I love doing that. Right. It's the first time I've ever tried to pick up. I wouldn't even have the confidence to call it mentoring, but I would just call it like, I have a chat with him every other Monday. And it's fun. So I think that's what I think people will want, more variety coming out of coronavirus. I certainly do. Like I want to try different stuff, and it's very hard to know how to do that right now in the world with LinkedIn being so like full-time, singular track focused. Like let's keep you in the same job for 15 years, have you promoted all the way through. I'm trying to knock down the career ladder and tell people that it could be like vertical, or it could be horizontal, not vertical.
Well, terrific stuff. Once again, it's Polywork, work. Polywork.com is the website. Peter Johnston, thank you so much for taking the time with us.
Yeah, no, thank you. It was a pleasure. I'm glad hope I didn't geek out too much, but yeah, no, excited. It was, such a pleasure to be invited.